WrestleTalk!
So, AEW now has 2 world titles. It has 2 world champions. You can tell that I've been off for a week because I have not put my laptop on mute.
Yeah.
Discord notification just came through.
I was like, what's just gone down? What's just happened?
Well, let's name and shame who that person is. It's Adam Whitney.
Oh, of course it
messaging
is.
me, knowing that I'm on the air, Adam.
Hang on. No, this is you. There's a little mute button right there. Go on.
Dan, I know this is my fault. But please let me blame Adam.
I know you've had a holiday, but you need to get back on it.
I met Jeff Jarrett this morning.
You must be flustered.
I am in fine feta, everyone.
Good.
I'm in a very, very good mood. But anyway, sorry, I'll start my intro again. So,
right.
It seems that AEW has 2 world titles. It has 2 world champions. And one of those world champions has sprayed a big old X in the middle of his belt, which just so happened to go through the E, which many people are taking as a shot against the elite.
All elite wrestling.
It's not that's just the midpoint of the X, and that's also just be the midpoint of the belt.
It couldn't possibly be that.
No.
Everything, Luke, has a subtle extra meaning. Everything.
In fairness to the people who have done that, CM Punk does have the exact same haircut he had when he turned heel following the his world title run, or during his world title run when he turned heel on The Rock.
I mean, look, is it an added little flavor where I'm like, that is quite fun? Would it have been quite satisfying? Probably a little bit. It's not like the reason it's happening, is it? Like he's always the triple X, the sort of CM Punk logo is always been a thing.
Straight edge means that I'm better.
Yeah, but it would have had to be. It's a real grudge to be straight edge for your whole life, specifically to take a shot at the elite on Collision. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest.
But anyway, hello, welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast. I'm Luke Owen, DAD. This is the Professor, the Truth, Dan Layton, your jam in the jar holder. He's got the gimmick, everyone. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast channel. Please do press the thumbs up button. Give us a subscribe. We are nearing 80,000 subs, which means we are about 5,000 away from hitting our 85,000 goal that we're looking to hit. Because I came into the studio having not been here for a week.
Yes.
And here's what I discovered. This is just sort of like how, oh God, what are these things? We've just got, YouTube play buttons just like that.
I haven't got
one for No Rolls Barred.
I've been desperate for one of those.
That's one for partsFUNknown.
This is an old style one.
That's an old style one. That's one for WrestleTalk. And they were just lying on the desk.
Nobody cares.
Because they were just like, we've got 3 of these things now. But you know what?
Swimming in them.
I was thinking, maybe I could put these on the set. And then I thought, I can't. They're not mine.
They're not yours.
I need one for the WrestleTalk Podcast.
This is it. I've been on YouTube for 10 years now. Getting ever closer to the 100,000 mark, and I've never quite made it. People who have them, they don't know they're born. They mean a lot to us who are so close, Yeah. So I agree with you. We'll push to make it happen.
Please do get your comments in down below with what you thought of this episode of Collision.
Oh my God!
I still have not used my laptop, and also get in your what do we call them? No mega chats. No mega chats, please, to WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one of them above the $5 before the end of the show. Dan, we have wasted enough time, 5 minutes in fact, before we've actually got into the main. We kind of talked about it a little bit already.
We need to talk about the main issue, which is that I have a fringe today.
Well, yeah, someone has said Dan with the Bieber haircut.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after the UltraChats.
Gotcha. Oh, well, a lead. Yeah.
Well, only
strong.
because there'll be people watching this video being like, when they get to the fireworks factory.
Yeah, the important bit.
We need to actually crack on.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, CM Punk on this episode of Collision, I actually really wanted to lead this episode with "They're Still Friends" because I enjoyed the main event so much. But I thought there's actually a much bigger talking point here.
And what's interesting is that main event felt like, to me, it took place on an entirely different show,
Didn't
which
it
is
just?
a part of what went down with CM Punk.
Yes, I would agree with you on that one. We'll get into that momentarily. But CM Punk comes out for a promo. Got a mixed reaction, which I think is the norm now. Like, I don't think we need to reference it every week. I think just him getting some boos, some cheers is just, that's the Punk reaction these days.
It's really interesting, though, because he gets what feels like a big pop when he comes out. And then he starts the promo. And that's where all the negative comes from. The big boos come from. It's really interesting.
I also love that CM Punk is a man who really does a good job of pretending that he doesn't look at social media, and like he's just not I don't care about what Twitter has to say. I
Yeah.
don't care what Instagram has to say. And yet he comes out on this show being like, hey, am I the first person to talk about Wembley? Because that was the big discourse last week.
Nobody has ever cared more what people say about him online than CM Punk, I feel.
But pretends that he doesn't.
Yeah, just
But
really
he's
sells
like,
it.
hey, am I the first person to reference that we're doing a Wembley show? And I was like, yeah, you are CM Punk, and you clearly are doing that because a lot of people were saying last week, why haven't they promoted a match for Wembley yet? He also says that he is the biggest, the realest world champion. He's been carrying around this red bag with him. Nobody beats him for the world championship. And he pulls out, he claims it's still got the blood on it from when he beat Jon Moxley at All Out last year. And declares himself the real world champion. No one has beaten him for this belt. And then he sprayed his X logo, his straight edge logo, on the middle of the belt. So of course it goes through the E because that is just the central point of the belt. It's the middle letter of a 3-letter logo, and that 3-letter logo is in the center of the belt. So it just happened to go through the E, and said, and that is obviously a reference to Hogan as well. Yeah, which is funny because again, for someone who doesn't care what people say about him, Eric Bischoff just this week was saying he's more of a problem than Hogan ever was in WCW.
Wow.
So
I actually haven't heard that.
So it's very funny then that he's also now doing a very Hogan-esque thing with the world title. So first off, before we get to Ricky Starks, what did you make of Punk's promo? Because I've got a kind of a different point that I don't think a lot of people have mentioned before, but I'll go into that in a second. What did you make of the promo? What do you make of the fact that there are now 2 world champions in this company?
Oh, God, Luke. I have trailed on my old Twitter sphere. Sorry, my X sphere.
No, don't do that.
You were on holiday. We all have to. It is X now.
No, it's not.
Okay. On my old social media space, that I have some bones to pick, some nits to pick with all of this stuff. One of those is not the promo, right? I loved this segment. I really did. I thought what Punk has is that magic. We've talked about it a number of times. There's a real passion and a conviction and an energy to his promos that kind of nobody else does. It's pure Punk, right? It's so interesting to me that I've been back before watching this collision, before we knew that this was going to be a segment, before any of it. I was watching the Summer of Punk because it's been over a decade now, and I kind of remember it's this fabled thing, and I couldn't quite remember how it went down. So I went back and
hilariously, it doesn't. Well, that's a lot of people say like, oh, it was the Summer of Punk, but it wasn't. Like he won the belt in Money in the Bank.
A week. It's a month. It's a period of a month.
Yeah, and he wins the belt in Money in the Bank, disappears for a month.
Yes.
Does the title unification at SummerSlam.
Yes.
Then loses the belt.
Yes. And what's so interesting is that in that time period, I would argue he's making the same kind of comments as he's making now. He's making the same kind of grievances as he's making now. The promos are certainly the same kind of style. What I mean by that is that he's there basically being like, I'm being held down. People aren't talking. You know, when he mentioned that business about, oh, am I the first person to talk about Wembley? He even said like, stuff's been going on here on AEW. On Collision, like he made a distinction between Collision and AEW, which is the same NWO versus WCW thing. It's the same thing of like, you people at the top don't know how you're running this company, that he was doing in the Summer of Punk. And I find it really interesting that in that period, he was this voice of the voiceless. The fans ate him up, and that was in no small part because we had been presented with a long period of absolute dirge from the people at the top of the company. The stuff that he was saying to Cena, I am sat there going, it's so interesting to me that if you said this now, I kind of feel like this would be heelish because you're essentially whinging. You are being a whinger. You're claiming that it's one thing, you got a chip on your shoulder because you've been held down because you're not the look and the feel of what this company should be. You're tattooed, you've got your piercings, your slick back hair. Here's a very clean-cut all-American guy with no tattoos
Looks like an action figure.
Looks like an action figure, face of the company stuff. But there's a level of pressure that you have to rise to when you are that picked, chosen one, and it's sink or swim. And so the amount of pressure on Cena's shoulders is something that Punk in that moment would never understand. And then here, what we've got is him having been in many ways the chosen one and buckling under that pressure at Brawl Out, being cranky and tired. And I find that such an interesting thing to think about, because he's cutting essentially the same promo in the same style. He's just getting booed for it now. And I think I love how much he was leading into it. When he pulled out the belt, it felt like a moment to me. We all knew that was in the bag. That's not been a surprise. The second he walked out.
He said that basically from day
Exactly.
one. What's in this belt is something I was never beaten for.
Yeah, and he pulled out the belt, and because we've seen it around MJF's waist this long time, and because I suppose in a way MJF has been second fiddle to the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club, kind of a little bit by virtue of the Blood and Guts and the Anarchy in the Arena stuff being necessarily top of the card. It's an interesting moment to see this belt come out, this one that we all know from the still images of Brawl Out, and it's got my name on it, it's got my blood on it. I found what he was saying so compelling, and then when he gets out, the spray paint, Tony Schiavone's in the ring, and he was there the first time it happened with Hogan and the NWO thing. It's such an... I keep saying this word, and I'm sorry that I keep repeating myself, but it is so interesting. I was so gripped by it. I was so taken by this promo. I really, really enjoyed it.
I think someone said that, like, I don't really see the magic of Punk that you often talk about. And I guess I don't want to be the person who's like, you had to be there. I think during that 2011 period, you had to be there to understand what the magic of Punk is. But what I think is, for me, the magic of Punk is when he's cutting a promo like this, I'm always looking at, like, I'm so interested in know what your end game is. Like, what is... he's got promos that you want to analyze every word of and the infliction of every word.
Exactly.
Because in this promo, particularly when Ricky comes out, and Ricky's kind of being positioned in this segment as the heel, and Punk is being positioned as the babyface. But you're right. Punk, back in 2011, did come across whingy, but we never said he was whingy because he was saying all the things that we had been saying.
Exactly.
And like and at Punk, that was the backstage, attitude, for lack of a better word. He was labeled against him. He's a whinger. He's always whining. But in this promo segment, he was whinging to Ricky. You didn't beat me. The referees beat me. It wasn't fair that you beat me. I actually want someone else at ringside that's going to have my back, that's going to make sure that I don't get screwed again. It's a place of complaining and whining and whinging, but doing it as a babyface.
Yeah.
So I'm there watching it being like, so what is your end game here? Like, are you... Because he must know. He's CM Punk. He doesn't do these things by accident. So it really does make me feel like we are going down this heel Punk route, but we are taking a big old detour in order to get there. Or we are there. And it's kind of like the arguments we used to have about Cody in AEW. Is he a heel or is he a face? He's sort of neither. He's what you want to make of him.
That's the magic of Punk.
That's the magic of Punk.
Because I know what you're saying when you say you don't really understand the magic of Punk. Because here's the thing, and something I trying to get across, and when I was talking about the Summer of Punk, is going back and watching it. I'm on John Cena's side now. That's a really fascinating thing for me. Well, when I'm watching it in isolation, I'm seeing these promos, and I'm like, it's not Cena's fault that Vince is trash. And your issue here is with Vince rather than with Cena and what Cena represents, and knowing how much Punk has spoken about how much he loved working with John, safe he felt, and how much they could do whatever they could. Of
course, he's the softest worker in the industry.
Sure, but he liked that he could just go and they could have matches together. It's beyond the softness or whatever. But also, the Cena was never whinging. Like, he was responding to it being like, I actually don't blame you for any of this stuff. I don't blame you for this grievance or this gripe or whatever. I think you winning, you gave me a hell of a match, kind of thing. Like, he's doing the honorable thing, and the best heels are the ones who exist in truth, right? They know what they're saying and they believe what they're saying, and I believe Punk believes what he's saying. And I think the magic of Punk is that he's irritating and right.
Yep.
And I think that's it. Because I don't love him. But I am compelled by him.
I like that a lot.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that a lot. Because I think I feel the same way. Like, there's a bit in the movie Private Parts, which is the Howard Stern biopic, where he's on the radio station and they're trying to get rid of him off this radio station, and they're being like, his viewing figures are through the roof. And he gets, like, the feedback from listeners. And it's like, well, people listen because they want to hear what he's going to say next. And he's like, well, what about the people that hate him? And so the same answer. They want to hear what he's going to say next. I have that with Punk. When I get advertised on Collision, we'll hear from CM Punk. I do have I'm curious to know what he's going to say next and what is the next stage of this CM Punk story. And you've been making this point over the last few weeks as well, that once the Owen Hart Cup is done, that's when we're going to start seeing storylines on Collision. And I kind of felt that this episode, there was a bit of that.
Yes, I agree.
And particularly with Punk and Starks. I mean, credit to this this run of Collision as well. It's done wonders for Ricky Starks.
Oh, yeah. It's nice to see stars being built and given the opportunity, and that's what the show was kind of for.
It has done wonders for Ricky Starks, who was a guy who was on a real big ascent. And the MJF feud going into last December was really, really good, and people were hoping that he was going to get something better out of that. And then he got the Jay White feud, which people felt was a bigger step down for Jay White. And then he's sort of just been around. But since Collision has started and he's gone into this feud with CM Punk, all of a sudden he feels like a top guy on Collision. I think it's a huge credit to Punk and the work that AEW have done with Collision. And he really held his own in this Punk segment.
So this is where we start to diverge a little bit, because I got really irritated by Ricky Starks' presence in this, because I went from... Oh, I also written a note, by the way. I just want to point out one thing that he said. Punk was like, I made it to the town just in time. Like, he's talking about I'll always be here for you. So desperate to be liked.
But I think that's a what's the word I'm
A dig?
after? No. It's not. Oh man, what's that? I cannot think of the word I'm after now. It begins with P. Purposeful.
Right.
It's a purposeful thing. I think he's playing it being babyface.
Yeah.
So like you're right. Like it's not a desperate thing of like, I am desperate for this people. It's like, no, it's a character thing.
Right.
I'm desperate for people to cheer me.
Yeah. And it's also interesting and makes a huge part of this mess of Punk that it's kind of almost like a car crash, right? Where you don't want to look away from it. It's like, how is this going to go? Part of Punk's return was, what's he going to say when he gets the mic? And he made that line about counterfeit books. And the reason that we've titled this video about, was the cross a dig at the Elite is because some people did see and read that, and whether or not we think they're right.
And that's the magic of Punk as well.
There you go.
That everything is done on purpose.
Yeah, so it's all part. There was a look down lens he did last week.
You can analyze every single one of his moves and be like, is this X? Is this Y? Is this Z?
When he showed up backstage at Raw, it was like, what's going on? Like, you can't take your eyes off it. And I think some of the reason that I'm so compelled by this double belt situation is all of the avenues that opens up. So when Ricky Starks comes out, for all of the pros that I want to give to Ricky Starks, and will happily, including but not limited to double entrance, and then Nigel McGuinness popping for it, big fan of that. And I was talking last week about how he's kind of given me like early Rock energy, and like he's got this kind of like the whole this business, like he's got the style and the look and he's everything Austin Theory wishes he could be. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know why he's here in this promo segment talking about certain things where he's like, I feel like that belongs to me, is not believable in any way, shape, or form, and not even in a you're a good heel in this moment promo piece for me. I'm like, on what planet does that title belong to you?
It's pinned Punk twice.
But like, no, like, sure, but that no, like, I didn't buy it. Like, I could have Stevie Wonder as my ref, and I'd still beat you. Doesn't make any kind of sense because Stevie Wonder is blind. So like, I don't get what you're trying to say there. There was a lot of things that he was saying that felt like he was trying to keep up, and it didn't make any sense for me as we're beginning this Punk with this secondary world title storyline for Ricky Starks to be there. Other than the fact that I get that they've had matches together. I get that he's beat him twice. But no, you're not. That's not what this story is, and that's certainly not given that we've got MJF on the show later on.
That's my bigger thing. I actually quite like the stuff that you're right.
Talk about the stuff with Ricky Starks, because I often am in the minority with these things, and I want to hear the positive side of it.
As I said earlier, I think Ricky really held his own in this. The Stevie Wonder line, you're right, does make a whole mess of sense. But I think that you can buckle under a pressure. You mentioned it earlier, like when you're the top guy. If you put down into a promo segment with CM Punk, it is a bit of a sink or swim. And I think that he did swim in this scenario. And I think that's one of Ricky's great strengths is his promo work. And I thought he was very, very effective in this segment.
He did that one line about the other line that got on my nerves. And again, I'm grumpy. Is he said something about like you go with your friends or whatever. Go get your friends in Stamford. Punk has no friends in Stamford. Are you joking?
That's
the whole point.
That's just a cheap heat line.
I know. But get out. Let's not do that.
Okay, but I think the counter to that is it did work.
Did it?
Well, no, the crowd popped huge.
That's because they're in Hartford and everyone knows that, we're making a reference to WWE.
But that's the point, isn't it, though? Like, sure, a lot of wrestling is to get crowd reactions. And he did get a crowd reaction there.
I see that.
The argument I've always given in not defense of the Elite, but like when people have been criticizing the Elite's work, saying like they are bad for wrestling, I was like, well, the crowd say otherwise. Because they are doing moves that the crowd are going absolutely nuts for, which means that it is working. What they are doing is working, even if it's for a certain audience. It does work for that audience.
I just find any like reference to WWE at this point, tired.
For you, but it does work for like. Audiences always, but once
but this audience were also chanting, "We want tables."
Well, when audiences start groaning at those things, then you're like, okay, I think this is now past its point. I'm a little bit tired of them, but I don't begrudge wrestlers for doing it because every time they do it, it gets a reaction.
It's cheap here, and I don't like cheap pops either.
Yeah, but cheap pops do work. There's a reason why they're called cheap pops. It's because they always work.
Yeah.
But my bigger thing about this, and we will need to move on a second because we're in sort of 25 minutes on this opening, this one segment, is. You had CM Punk in the ring with a world title saying, I'm the real world champion. And they announced on the show he's going to be defending that real world championship against Ricky Starks next week with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as the special guest referee. That's a bit of fun, particularly because Ricky was such a huge part of CM Punk's stuff in Ring of Honor. So that's great. Love all of that. MJF was on this show. Like, this segment is fine if MJF is not in the building. But we had a guy standing in the middle of the ring saying he's the real world champion. And the actual world champion was on this card in the main event and did not come out for this segment.
He had nothing to say about this.
Nothing to say about it.
And I get that he's in a whole separate storyline.
But when I watched it, I was like, that's weird that he's not. But then I was thinking, well, maybe that is part of the story. He's so distracted with his friendship with Adam Cole. He's not even registered that this guy over here is saying that he's the real world champion.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't believe that Punk has ever been on his level, so he's not even paying attention to him. But I do hope that is something, that is part of a storyline, because otherwise it feels real weird that you had one guy say you're the champion and the other guy who's the champion didn't make a reference to that at all.
So here's where we get to my massive gaping logic hole in the booking of this, right? Which is that if you were to have Collision truly be a show almost with an entirely distinct roster, which it sort of has been, there's been crossover, MJF has appeared on it. I'm never going to say no to having MJF certainly on the show. Adam Cole as well. I am so high on this tag team story. It's not even funny. But when you have, it's very hard to present the idea of this insurgent, I am right and justified in having this belt. I never had it taken away from me. When you then later on have the current world champion come out and have a whole section where he's presented by Adam Cole with the belt saying, you are the world champion, like lift yourself up, don't worry. And there's a moment where he's going to go hit it. Because I'm just seeing two of the same belt and there's absolutely no crossover and there's not even a crossover on the commentary. There's no mention of, I wonder how he feels about this. Unless I missed it, and there's a possibility that I missed it, but I'm pretty certain there was no mention. And I recognize that Adam Cole and MJF have their own story, which is separate to what CM Punk's doing. Well, in that case, keep it separate.
You can spin multiple plates.
You can, and I would almost prefer it to be they're on Dynamite, challenging for the tag belts on Dynamite. Not that I'm complaining we got the main event here, but keep them over there and have Punk over here with this unsanctioned, unrecognized world title. And my problem and my logic hole here is when you book and promote and sanction a match, calling it the real world title match, you are saying that CM Punk is recognized by you as world champion. So his gripe that nobody beat me for this, and I'm again, like, people are holding me down, this insurgent voice of the voiceless, stick it to the man energy that he's bringing is a complete fraud, and not in the good narrative way, because you've told us that he is a world champion, right? So, like, there's no insurgency, there's no sense of injustice. He's just a champion with a legitimate belt that he's defending. And the other world champion is also there. Like, it's the same idea of, in WWE, the word undisputed doesn't mean anything. Over here, the word unsanctioned doesn't mean anything because they are sanctioning it, because they're letting him defend it on the show, right?
It's the FTW belt.
which like is almost an entirely separate thing, but also yes.
But I think it is the same thing in that the logic hold with the FTW belt is that it is a belt not officially recognized by AEW, but it is defended on AEW and promoted on AEW shows as being defended.
The only difference, or rather the key difference, is that these two belts A look the same and B is the AEW championship.
Yeah,
and it's saying. It's got the logo on it, and I get that he crossed it out, but that's what I don't know. It's just this thing of like, there's just an inconsistency there.
I think, this show. My only issue I have with this is the whole MJF thing. There being two world champions, I am not against because I feel that we're getting a title unification match very soon.
Well, if you have the NWO versus WCW thing, that's fine.
I have more of an issue if they are two world titles and they are just defended at the same time for months on end. Then I will have an issue with this because I hate two world titles.
You do, and I
hate
find
two
that
world titles.
Very interesting. You've been now confronted with two companies that both have it.
Both companies now have two world champions, and it winds me up no end. So but I feel that All Out is probably going to be the title unification match, and if that's the case, then that's fine. I just hope that MJF not referencing this thing or MJF not even reacting to this thing is all actually just part of this Adam Cole story.
Yeah.
Because if it isn't, and we are just going to have next week, MJF just comes out and cuts a promo on him without referencing that, be like, well, where were you last week then? Like, I kind of want them to make that make sense.
I'm willing. It's what we always say. Let it play out. Like, I'm happy to take a couple of weeks and see how it goes with everything and every storyline development. Initially, I have my gripe with this logical inconsistency, and I'll tell you the other reason why is because it is that tweener thing still. Like, you have him be a good guy. Yeah, he got it stripped. Like, he never lost it.
Yep.
He just had it taken off him, and he was put on the shelf for a year because of a Barney. It's the wrestling industry. Like, this has happened.
He's also injured.
In storyline, we're talking about. But like, he never lost it. He's on the shelf. Like, he's whatever. And now someone else is parading around with the belt, and I, but this is mine. It's got my name on it. It's got my blood on it. Loved all of that. The heel side of that is also really compelling because the Elite came back and they challenged for their trios titles and they lost them pretty conclusively. Like, they went, we never lost these, but we like them back, please. Let's wrestle for them. Over a course of 7 matches, they lost. Right? So that's the honorable.
They won them over the course of 7 matches.
Am I missing?
Yeah,
did they win them back?
Yeah, they won them back and then lost them to House of Black.
Not bad. Either way, point being. That's my bad. In my head, I went straight from Death Triangle to House of Black.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
I remember when they came back and the first challenge, they lost it, and then we went into the best of 7.
Yeah.
Point being, apologies for getting it wrong. Point being, they came back and challenged for it.
Yeah.
They said, we recognize that you're the champs, and now we want those back. That's the honorable babyface way of doing it. So you get a lovely heel version of that with Punk being like, I didn't lose this. You're nothing. This is mine. I'm not even challenging you for it.
But acting as a babyface at the same time.
Which is so compelling.
It's very compelling.
So give MJF a mic and have this be the story, or at least have them on separate shows and the other guy and that's the NWO versus WCW thing. That's the Ric Flair being the real world champion thing. Is the idea of this insurgent, this idea of this them versus us, even on the commentary selling it. The pure and utter no-sell of this from the MJF side on this show was a real, like... And then Ricky Starks is challenging for it? Ricky Starks has more to say about this than MJF? I don't get that.
Which is why I feel like it has to be intentional that he didn't, because it's weird if not. If not, I will happily eat some humble pie and be like, that's a huge error. That's a massive, that's a massive error. But I've got to feel because it wasn't done, and he was on the show, has to be done on purpose.
Yeah,
but
we can hope.
But maybe I'm giving them far too much credit.
And with Cody at WrestleMania, the idea was let it play out. 2-3 weeks later, I was like, nah, that wasn't supposed. That was a stupid decision. This same thing here. If in 3 weeks' time we're getting the most compelling angle between MJF and CM Punk, or at least even if they're not together, they're separate, I'll eat my hat and be thrilled to do so.
Well, speaking of hats, as our first Ultra Chats, please do get in your no mega chats to WrestleTalk.com/support. Let us know what you think of the double title situation. Quite a few people have got some thoughts on this, including The Guilty Hat, who says the whole bag situation has felt weird to me from day one. Maybe if the rest of the company talked about it, I'd feel different, but since it's just Punk, it just feels like something he wants to get over at the expense of others. I hope Stark wins it and bins it.
God, that would be fascinating and also my least satisfying conclusion to this story.
Shane Ullman has been a member for 8 months in a row who says, unification match at All In, world champion versus straight edge champion. Love your content, lads. I mean, doing that at Wembley is
I ain't going to say no to that.
No, I think you do it at All Out.
No, but I am not going to say no to that as someone who's going. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
We want to see it.
Did I tell you what my pitch is for the All In match?
Well, please, because maybe they'll listen and book something.
Well, I mean, there's one, my Jeff Jarrett interview that'll be going up this week. I pitch a match for him that Jeff seems to be very on board with, and I think he's going to be pitching it to Tony Khan.
Oh, I know which one it is, and no wonder he's up for it.
Here's my pitch I had for All In. CMFTR versus Adam Cole, MJF, and Roderick Strong. And it's Cole trying to get Roddy on side that MJF's actually a good guy.
I actually like that's quite good.
Because I think that's a very fun precursor.
What did MJF call him? You default call.
Exactly. Yeah, you default create a
Love
wrestler.
that.
Like, because I think you can use that as a very good setup match for the world title unification match the following week.
Yeah, and this is why I keep when I were repeating myself at this point, but it is a really good story. Do it. Do it.
Nathan says, prediction here. MJF will give Cole another title shot. Punk saying he's the champion, so we'll have a three-way between them at Wembley. Punk pins Cole to win. MJF and Cole have a feud, and MJF saying that he knew he shouldn't have trusted him. Then you can do MJF and Punk 3. To add what I've said, we can have Punk versus Starks for the world title while MJF and Cole are feuding.
Hang on, does that mean we've got one title or two?
As two.
Still.
No, that's one. I believe that's a title unification in Nathan's.
And then afterwards, Punk versus Starks for the world
Yeah.
title. I think either way, unless you are keeping these people as separate as possible, two world titles. Imagine if there was a world title and a real world title championship at Wembley. You'll be fuming. You'll be fuming.
Black Gold 1155 says, just because CM Punk has a credit card and internet access to shop AEW.com doesn't mean he's a world champion. Only one man holds the triple B. What's more interesting, though, is that his symbol covered the elite on his toy belt.
Black Gold 1155. That one line is all I needed from MJF on this show to at least have an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And then I would not have a single gripe.
Do
you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you on that one. As for I said what I said earlier about the it being a shot at the elite.
Yeah,
that's the magic of Punk. Is that one thing? Exactly. That's it.
Could be. Probably isn't, but could be.
Yeah, probably isn't. But it's CM Punk, so could be.
Yeah.
It's that brilliant bit of Michael Cole commentary at Elimination Chamber, which when talking about Sami Zayn is like, is it likely? No. But it's possible.
Yeah, it's always the 1% chance.
And he said that, and I was like, oh, I'm so in.
Yeah.
Adam Dean said, really hoping we get heel Punk pudding over Ricky. All of his losses have had massive asterisks next to him. So him talk about losing to the referees felt condescending to Ricky. He acted like Ricky hit him in the balls when Punk would have done the same thing. I don't know why my wife is trying to call me. I'm on air. RZHA288. Whether it's the You Can't See Me Man or the King of Kings, you are always second best. I think CM Punk is fulfilling everything MJF said about him during the first promo they had. Also, Luke, the softest worker in the industry, is named The Miz. The entire CM Punk arc is in reference to WWE, Dan. I don't know how you have Punk without WWE references. Also, can you stop saying the belts look the same? It's a whole separate design. It seems like MJF is treating Punk as an old man yelling at clouds. They are the same design, just a different strap.
Just different strap. One of them is a much nicer strap.
I did also say as well when I called Cena the software, I said, oh, there's also The Miz. I just said it under my breath. He's the king of soft style, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Don't know why people see. I mean, I'm negging on the guy. It's a good thing. You're not supposed to hurt people in wrestling.
Would you like? That there's the bit in the we saw it in this show with Suzuki and Alan, where they're like stood and it's like, go on, hit me, and the idea that they trade these really stiff blows, like the Miz getting involved in an NJPW match, and it's like he takes a really stiff forearm and he just goes.
Thomas here says, hey, Prof and Luke, when you say the magic of Punk is that you could pick what you want from him to be as a fan, i.e. heel or face, why then, in your opinion, did the same scenario not work with Cody in AEW?
I'm biased because I'm a Cody fan, but please.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Maybe that's the magic. Like, not to be facetious.
It is. I think Cody was such a weird one in AEW because the Codyverse did become this very bizarre thing where people just went to Cody, as Going in Raw very brilliantly coined it. people just go to Cody Island for a little bit and then manage to get a plane out of it and go back into other people's storylines.
Do you think it's because Cody, in the weirdest way, was like a square peg in a round hole? Cody is a sports entertainer. Like it's so fascinating that he was among the ones who went off and made this whole thing when he's so perfect for the WWE model. Do you know what I mean? That by being in this AEW world where it is sort of different to that's why the Cody verse was a thing. And actually Punk was that square peg in a round hole in WWE, but there wasn't an alternate product. So it's what we wanted as a fan base back then. And now Punk is what AEW is, kind of. Do you know what I mean? And so maybe that's what makes it more broad in terms of how we respond to Punk in AEW. I don't know.
Well, Cody has his own different sort of magic, and I think it's a difference of crowds. Because what Cody is doing in WWE is exactly the same as what he was doing in AEW. It's just in AEW. Yeah, exactly. And it's not even that he was getting booed for it. It's just in WWE it works. He can do the Homelander stuff, and it just works. And in AEW, it did work. Right at the start of this, you can go back and watch those early AEW shows. People lapped up everything that Cody was doing. He was the guy in AEW for a long time. Ollie Davis on this very channel, on this very podcast, once said he feels like he's my brother, and I love him like a brother because I want to see, and like he felt so strongly as a connection towards him. During the pandemic, man, something just went awry. Maybe it was the "I solved racism" promo, which wasn't what he said, but it is how it came across,
and it has remembered.
Yes, and then doing the Anthony Ogogo USA versus UK feud, which was so weird. And then he came out dressed as Homelander, and everyone was like, "What is this character?" Yeah. But all of a sudden, it's for whatever reason it works in WWE, but it did not work in AEW. Different audience, I guess.
I think it really is.
Right, Dan, you very quickly. I'm just going to quickly text my wife to find out.
So should I talk about my hair while you're doing?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. If you can just basically what your hair is.
Here's what went down. Right, I've just been back and forth from Manchester. I was there for a MegaCon, very brief, very surprise trip to Manchester, where in true July fashion, it's been absolutely pissing it down, and I forgot my hair product. So what happened was I stepped out of the hotel to get on the train this morning. It rained on me, and I just went, sod it, let it dry. And this is where we are. So we're just going with it. I feel like because of the white blonde, normally we have a little bit of distinction with my forehead and the style, but I feel like I'm just one shape at the moment. I don't know. So normal service will be resumed tomorrow. I'll even get my chest out. I'll have had a shower. Everything will be fine by then. But there you go. Maybe I'll shave it off like Punk one day. Yeah. But then we'd be proper twins.
Yeah.
We'd be like FTR.
And, really, of course, it rained in Manchester. Anyway, this episode of Collision opened with the usual opening promos of people kind of promoting the upcoming matches. So you had MJF and Cole cutting their promos and FTR cutting their promos, and Darby Allin issuing an open challenge, which was answered in a spectacular fashion later on in the show. We had Ian Riccaboni doing commentary again. I do miss Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, he said the word fans about 97,000 times on this show, and it started to get on my nerves. But I do think he is a brilliant commentator.
And we opened with a ladder match for Andrade's mask between Andrade El Idolo versus Buddy Matthews.
Can I give you my very first note on this?
Yep.
Luke will like Andrade's Kevin Nash gear.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look, a little Diesel there.
There you go.
But Andrade, did a moonsault off the ladder to the floor very early on in this match, which kind of set the tone for it. Do you know what else set the tone? This crowd chanting for tables, because they are the worst.
Yeah, I wrote on Twitter that I feel like anyone who chants "We want tables" in a ladder match this brutal deserves to be put through a ladder with a power bomb. And in fact, then after I tweeted that, that's exactly what happened to Buddy Murphy with an incredible my apologies, Buddy Matthews, with an incredible sunset flip from Andrade.
The amount of times I wrote here, the crowd chant for table because they are the worst, and I put worst in all caps.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because it's this thing of like, I get it, it's a vibe, it's the opening match, you're all feeling your oats and all that, that's quite fun, but this match was intense and brutal and really good. Like, I really liked this match. And you were distracting me by chanting for tables which were completely unnecessary, to the point where when they did pull out a table, I was cross at them. I was like, stop bowing to pressure.
I mean, I was crossing them for a very different reason. Because you and I had this conversation during the Miz-Tommaso Ciampa match on Raw, when they were having the brutal
Which I've written down as an example.
They have... they crowd were chanting tables because they're the worst. And they did the very, very good, as I called it on that Raw episode, basic economic spots of the babyface goes to get the table, and then the heel puts the table away, and the crowd boos the heel. So they had the heel get out the tables. It is basic fundamentals.
Right.
Have the babyface. If the crowd are chanting for tables and you're going to do a table spot, have the babyface do it.
I mentioned this as well because I wrote down about Miz and Ciampa and also the Viking rules matches where there were people chanting "We want tables," and I actually felt like it added to it. I think there was because those matches were silly nonsense. Do you know what I mean? They were quite fun, and one of them was a no DQ. One of them was Viking rules. Anything goes. This one is strictly a ladder match. You are seeing excessive violence. This is it's for a mask on a pole, but that means a lot to Andrade. And while at one point Ian said how deranged, dark, and deep this rivalry has become, to which I wrote, has it? They've just got a few promos on each other.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's full alliteration there from me and Riccaboni.
It was lovely. But and yet, here's the thing. In spite of how tame I think this rivalry was, I was really into this match. And so it really got on my nerves when they were calling for something without, it felt like they weren't invested in what was going on. And so when it came to that, the ladder had been set up between one of the rungs of the ladder and the bottom rope. They're fighting on top of it. I'm like, oh no, where's this going to go? And Andrade we'd had the spear onto the DDT on one of the ladder bridges, which was brutal. And then we got this sunset flip bomb with precisely zero give. And I was just like, cripes, how can you want anything more from this? This was so good.
I was going to say, like, I sounded like I was being a bit down in this match because I thought the heel getting the table spot was a touch silly. This match was awesome.
It was.
This match was rad.
You're so right. You are right that the heel getting the thing up was wrong. And also, we are right to say that the crowd were annoying. But
this match was rad.
What makes it annoying was that it took away from an otherwise rad match. It was so good.
So good.
I loved the final spot.
One of my favorite spots in this was it was during the picture-in-picture ad break, but it plays into the first collision outing that these two had.
Oh, yeah.
Andrade, where they did the double injury spots, and they had people working out over them during the ad break, and then they got back up and they fired through this. During this, they had this move very early on where Buddy Matthews, he got the back dropped into a ladder and his shoulder popped out.
Yeah.
So they go to ad break and he slides out of the ring, goes up to the doctor and yells at him to pop his shoulder back in. So we then watch his shoulder get popped back in.
Yeah.
And he just runs straight back into the ring. And it really did feel like, because you're right, like it's a fairly simple story. They stole his mask. He wants the mask back. But the way these two were going at it, like these two were the most hated of hated rivals. I thought they added so much. And that spot with Matthews getting his shoulder popped back in popped me, no pun intended, so huge.
Yeah.
I was like, this is rad.
It
this
was
is
really
so
well
awesome.
And it was the timing of it, like him being like, I've got to get back in the ring, and the doc's being like, well, it's going to hurt. And he's like, I don't care.
Don't care.
It made him look like a bamf, right? So then you get into the ring, and then the handcuffs I wrote handcuffs were fun. Saw it last month. But when you get to the final closing moment, the table has been set up in the corner, and Julia Hart has climbed on Andrade's back. I'm like, oh, he's not going to just fling, is he? That can't be what happens.
So, the finish of this match, which I very much enjoyed, because they had the insane sunset bomb off the top of the ladder to another ladder bridge. Kind of hard to explain. You kind of just need to go out your way to watch this. But Julia Hart and Buddy Matthews handcuffed Andrade to the post. So he can't get out. And then Buddy Matthews goes to hit him with the chair. Andrade kicks that chair into Matthews, gets the key, unlocks himself while Julia Hart is tending to Matthews. And then, in a bit of kerfuffle, he locks Matthews to the brick. Oh, what the? Oh, no, the heels come up as he's there going mad. And then Andrade throws the key into the crowd.
Yeah.
And Nigel McGuinness brilliantly said, no, throw that back.
Nigel McGuinness was on top form
in
this show.
Top form. So Andrade starts to climb the ladder. Julia Hart jumps onto his back. Andrade continues to climb. I don't quite know how. Buddy Matthews, because he's a badass, I guess, broke out of his handcuffs.
He had pliers.
Oh, yeah, pliers.
He had pliers.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he gets out of the handcuffs and he goes up the other side.
Yeah.
And then Andrade stops him and beats him up and knocks him off the ladder and then gets Julia Hart, amazingly, off his back to the other side.
It was a feat of abdominal strength that they didn't fall.
Incredible that this did not go nipple north.
Yeah.
And she starts slapping him. The slaps had no effect.
One of them sounded great.
Yeah.
The other two didn't.
And then he just goes, dunk.
Yeah.
And he gives her a little push. She falls off the ladder into Matthews, through the table, and he gets the mask down. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It was a great opener to the show, and I was well excited when we were told we were going to get it last week, so I'm thrilled that it lived up to it.
If I was to have one nitpicky complaint, it's a bit of old school TNA thing as we went to the back almost immediately. With Tony Schiavone interviewing Miro, but he was attacked by Aaron Solo, but Miro stood tall.
What the ever-living F was this segment?
I have no idea. And then afterwards, Miro just goes, Schiavone!
I also, like, I didn't know who Aaron Solo is. Sorry. I don't, and I also didn't.
He's a blind spot for you, isn't it? Because that's the second show you and I have reviewed that Aaron Solo has been involved in, and you're like, who was that guy?
Do I just have facial blindness for Aaron Solo? I'm sorry to this man. I don't know. I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I hope you never recognize who Aaron Solo is.
But then, like, also the announcer didn't say a single word. So it all played out in pure silence. And they didn't even, like, show his face much. The only reason we know it's Aaron Solo is because people paused it and then reported it afterwards.
I think it was Aaron Solo anyway. I wrote down Aaron Solo in my notes, but it's a pure guess on my part.
And then Schiavone? Well, that was weird. Anyway, next segment. What was this?
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. It was absolute nonsense. Also, must do this every single time.
Hi, Mara.
Hi, Mara.
I even knew it before you said it. There it is.
I love that Mara's in the chat. Miss Mara a lot. We then had Darby Allin having his open challenge. You know, there's a list of people this could be. Could be Swerve Strickland again. Could be AR Fox. He's got a bit of beef going on with him.
Could have been Miro. He was cross.
Could have been Nick Wayne just being like, hey, do you know what? We should tear the house down. It was Minoru Suzuki.
Unannounced.
I was
Pops Dasher. Did you see Dasher?
Yeah.
She was like, back to professional.
Pop me.
Yeah.
I was like, it's Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah.
I was delighted. I love to see Murder Grandpa on TV.
Yeah.
But as a Brit Rest fan, as a British wrestling fan, particularly one who frequented Rev Pro a lot.
Yeah.
I have seen a lot of Minoru Suzuki matches live. I've probably seen more Minoru Suzuki matches than I've seen anybody else matches.
Yeah.
Because he just does a lot of like British independent stuff. I've just seen loads of Minoru Suzuki matches live. And every single time I go mad for them.
Yeah.
Because I just love it.
Well, Murder Grandpa, it's fun, isn't it?
He's now in this position in New Japan, and he kind of has been for years now. So it's hard for me to say now, because he's been in this position in New Japan for years. Tomohiro Ishii is the exact same guy here. He is a guy that you can send across to a North American company or to a British company and be like, he is a recognizable name from New Japan, but you're okay to beat him.
Yeah.
They don't do this with Okada. They're starting to do it with Tanahashi a little bit because he's getting to that age now.
Yeah.
You don't do it with Okada. When he was there, you don't do this with Jay White. You don't do this with Shingo. Like, you don't, like, there's a group of guys you don't do this with. But Suzuki's one of those guys. And Ishii's one of those guys. And yet, even so, every time one of them gets announced, I go, yay!
It's going to be a little pop, isn't it?
Ishii's here.
Yeah.
Stone Pitbull's here. Or, yay, Suzuki is here. I knew that Darby Allin was winning this, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Because Suzuki went in there. He did all of his Suzuki spots. I loved every single one of them. And then Darby won.
There you go.
Thumbs up from me.
Does the job. I got a bit cross in the middle of it because while I was really
Won't hear it.
Not with the match. They said that, is the TNT title shot happening at All Out?
No, I don't think they've announced when it's happening.
I'm pretty sure. I thought I heard them say it's happening at All Out, right? And I got really cross because I was like, tell me they haven't set a pro wrestling attendance record for a show that they're going to treat like Insurrection. And it's just going to be like a random selection of matches that have no interest. And then, but All Out's the real show. I was like, give me the TNT title match All In.
You say that, but remember there was that one time when it was, I'm going to try to remember this now. Was it?
If this ain't it.
Is it The Rock defended the title against Triple H and Shane McMahon in a triple threat? Oh, I am right on that one. It was when Rock was champion. Yeah.
Or 2000.
It was in 2000. Because it was the whole, like, the promo beforehand was Coach being like, this is The Rock defending against Triple H, and get this. Shane McMahon. That's kind of the advertising I want for this show.
And Chris Tarrant was in the audience.
It's MJF to win the goal against Adam Cole, and get this,
Shane McMahon.
Tony Khan.
Imagine if this is when Tony Khan books himself to be champ. Imagine if it's All In, because he's like, they love me in London. I got Fulham to mid-table glory in the Premier League.
Look, as an Everton fan, that'd be great. I wouldn't mind a bit of mid-table glory.
Crap out of that. Well, yeah, that's fair.
Bit of mid-table glory, that'd be delightful. But this was a fun little match.
Oh, and I also wrote, lovely sequence for the end.
Well, it was, yeah, because this was Darby did the coffin drop.
Yep.
And Suzuki immediately grabbed him in the chokehold.
Yeah.
But Darby rolled him up for the win. Suzuki pleaded with the referee that his shoulders were up, but the referee saw otherwise.
Yeah.
And Suzuki was wrong.
And we have no reason to question the referee's sight on AEW Collision at any stage. No, it was a lovely. I love being caught in a submission like that. When it's the same. I get the same from it that you get from a moment that we're going to see in the next match, which is when Joe just walks away from someone diving on him.
Yeah.
When you're caught in a submission, I go, "Ooh, it worked!" You know.
So a lot of people pointing out here that it was announced for they definitely said it was All Out.
That's what I said. I thought so.
Which means that the match at All In is going to be Christian Cage and Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin and Edge. That'll be the tag match to set up the TNT match for a week later.
Don't treat All In at Wembley like the kickoff show for All Out. I swear to God, I'll be fuming from my seat.
And if you can't get Edge, which might be likely, then Gangrel will be a perfect substitute.
Maybe they could get Brood Edge.
Oh, so you can't have
Edge, but you could have Brood Edge
to come out with Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember it vividly.
Do you remember that they had multicolored kendo sticks?
Certain things are buried into my brain forever.
Anyway, we've got a video promo for Shida versus Storm, and then we got a very fun squash match of Samoa Joe versus Gravity. This match was done for one reason and one reason alone. It was so Samoa Joe could do the walkaway spot while doing the moonwalk taunt at the same time, and I loved it, and it's awesome. And Dan has got a problem with Gravity's moonwalk taunt, and I won't hear any of it. It's superb.
Sorry to be a dick, but if your name is Gravity, surely the whole zero gravity thing just is not how physics work. If you are Gravity, you should be walking very heavy-footed. Like, I would argue. I get like the idea of like, oh, he's a high flyer, so gravity. Like, but also, no, that's not how gravity works. I've seen Oppenheimer, all right? I know about physics now.
The thing is, Dan,
I'm basically a quantum mechanist.
The thing is, Dan, you said this to me earlier, and you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, I don't care. Because he does the little walk.
When Joe did the walk away, I had a great time, all right? I really enjoyed it.
I can't remember if I wrote this. Oh, no, I wrote this for a different thing. It was Bullet Club Gold's entrance, where I said, this is the most gifable entrance I've ever seen in my life.
I've already gift a whole bunch.
The moonwalk thing is the most gifable entrance.
Me walking away from my problems, yeah.
Everyone's having a pop at Dan now. Boo, Dan.
Of course
boo.
they are. Of course they are. You know why? Because you hate science. I'm sorry to just bring you with the facts.
You hate the truth. But anyway, look, here are my notes. Joe does the walk away spot and does the moonwalk at the same time, so this match was all worthwhile. Straight into the bus for the win. That was rad.
Look, I'm happy for you. All right.
We then got another little squash match here, more or less a squash match anyway. Bullet Club Gold versus Vikingo, Darius Martin and Action Andretti. How did that Chris Jericho feud work out for you, Action Andretti? And yeah, this Bullet Club Gold entrance was very gifable. Because the Guns entrance is quite cool anyway, where they spit out water while doing their little gun points things. It's very, very cool. But to have the spin around and have Juice Robinson just going, yeah, 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 made this
tremendously entertaining.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then, wait, do you know what? It was a fun match. Of course it was. It's a 6-man tag on an AEW show.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
There was a beautiful dropkick into a German. Andretti and Martin are a team that I like very much. And I lol, how did that push go for you? Whatever. I would like to watch them wrestle all the time. Give me a 58-minute match with them and FTR. I insist.
On this, we talked earlier about how Collision's been a real great time for Ricky Starks. It's been such a good time for Bullet Club Gold.
Oh, big time.
It has done wonders for Bullet Club Gold.
And look, I get that wins and losses matter, and losing in defeat, looking strong in defeat is a thing that can happen. I think it's been great to see Andretti and Martin 2 weeks in a row, and really like what they show. Like, you know, if they were to at some point get a run, that's a good thing as a result of this show, to see Miro get his moments in the spotlight. Andrade and Buddy Matthews, it's the same thing. You know, I'm a big fan of that element of it. One quick question,
Please do.
Vikingo did that move and then took himself out, which is interesting because he landed on all three men and they were fine, but he was out for the rest of the match.
So this spot, hard to explain this one, I feel.
It looked great.
It did look great. So you had all three of Bullet Club Gold on the outside.
Yeah.
You had Darius and Action Andretti on the middle ropes in the corner, and they did the hands thing. So they then lifted their hands up, and Vikingo stood on those hands, so it's above the top rope.
Yeah.
And then they flung him, and he did a jump, and he did a flip dive to the outside.
Yeah.
Wickedly cool, very visually impressive. It led to the finish where Bullet Club Gold won.
Right. So, high risk, high reward.
Or
this is what makes Jim Cornette bust along, all right?
High risk, no reward.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. A bit of logic in there. I love a bit of flippy nonsense. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But I also like it to come with some logic. But then again, it's a Vikingo match, so I guess I've got.
Here's my note. I had fun.
There you go. I guess
And like
Lucha, shut up, Dan.
And
you
like
know?
Lucha House Party, I like to have fun.
I do love good lucha thing.
Yeah. And then we got Kiera Hogan versus Mercedes Martinez. Martinez won a very basic match. Statlander ran down for the save when Martinez refused to let go of the hold. Martinez then knocked her out with the TBS Championship, and Willow Nightingale ran down to make a second save.
Look at all the women we have, said Tony Khan. At the start of this match, Mercedes Martinez came out. By the way, excited to see Mercedes Martinez get TV time every single time. She's great. And I really enjoyed that she was making her entrance. Ian's giving it, telling us where she comes from. And the way he was describing it was like, in a dark, dark house, in a dark, dark street, in the dark, dark street. Like, it's like how he's explaining where Mercedes Martinez comes from. And then they have a perfectly fine, utterly heatless match, which is interrupted by picture-in-picture for the second week in a row. This happened to Taya and the other one.
Mm-hmm. Well, last week on
you weren't here.
I wasn't here for it.
Taya and Sky Blue. And it's like, yeah, fine. Thanks for giving it us at best, but it's something that was spoken about on the Dynamite review with Ollie and Tempest was very much that they were saying, you book your show and then you go, oh, we've got to find space for a women's division match. And that's kind of where it falls apart for me, because you shouldn't be treating it like, oh, I've got to put a women's match on there for that women's division. Mm-hmm. The whole point of it is that you have all of these incredibly... Like, you showed us them. You showed us Statlander and you showed us Willow, who is, by the way, becoming one of the most over people in your company because she's just a ray of sunshine and real good. That Athena match with Willow was
incredible.
Right? So, like, you've got the talent. It's not about finding a space for them. Like, you know, as much as I love seeing Minoru Suzuki and Darby Allin, maybe that match doesn't take place here, or maybe you don't need... I guess if you got Vikingo, you book Vikingo. There's an argument to be made. But it's not about putting tokenism in there. It's just about finding the space and making it mean something.
It needs to have purpose.
You know, and I did appreciate that in the Owen Hart tournament. I think those matches had purpose.
Sure,
you know, it was a tournament. Look, thanks for putting 4 women on the show and giving us a lead in for Shida and Toni Storm. Appreciate that. Keep going. Keep going.
Ollie Davis, I would say, quite cleverly, a few years back, coined the term to describe AEW, its lipstick service.
Nice.
And there was a period of time when AEW were real bad for their women's division. Awful. Absolutely dreadful. I once made a joke about, I think it was actually for the Nyla Rose Shida match, where it was basically at the end of that Simpsons episode, it was like, oh, and let's just say Shida.
Yeah.
And then Cody Rhodes had this odd defense of the bad booking in the women's division, being like, look, not every feud can be War and Peace. It's like, no, but not every feud needs to be a pamphlet either. Like, there isn't not every book is War and Peace, Cody. Yeah. Like, there are in-between books in terms of length. Like, you did nothing for this one. And then all of a sudden, it kind of got a little bit good, and it felt like, okay, we're starting to get, sure, there's only one match per card, and that's a bit frustrating, but it feels like we're making really feels like since the Jamie Hayter injury, we have regressed massively back to the early days where it was just lipstick service.
And if your argument is that you're Tony Khan and you've got 2 shows and you spread thin on both of them, sorry, that's not really an excuse. Like, get people to help plan the shows out. Like, it's not. And I also don't feel like this. We're now just repeating comments that were from last week, but I just feel like I don't know. Book some stuff.
Also, as well, with the reports are rather that Hayter might not be fit in time for All
which
In,
was such a shame.
which is a huge, huge shame.
I was at Euston Station earlier on, and I went down the escalator, and there's a poster for All In. You know who's front and center of that poster? Saraya. I was like, wow, Saraya is the big name that they're selling All In on because she's British. Yeah, I was like, wild.
Yeah, well, makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, good for her.
Yeah,
I like Saraya,
and it looks like we're heading towards Storm and Baker for All In. Fine. Because Baker's getting a couple of wins under her belt, so they're heating her up for a match with Storm. That's good. Yeah, like it'll be a good match.
I just want them to be part of the fabric of the company. I think.
I feel like the Outcasts versus Baker and friends has really dried up because once Hayter got injured, they just sort of stopped doing it. Yeah. And then it was, well, here's Willow Nightingale for a bit, or well, here's this person for a bit. I was like, I just feel like here's Sky Blue for a bit. I just feel like we've lost all oomph on this feud.
What's your reason for being there? I think is the question. Whenever you're writing something down, what's your raison d'etre? And it's a tricky one. I don't know what the answer is.
However, what is improvise? Change your plans.
Yeah.
Just work out something different. It is not that difficult because you do it with the lads all the time. So speaking of, go back into being positive again. This main event, which was MJF and Adam Cole versus FTR for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, the winners of the Blind Eliminator Tournament, the bromance of the summer, who've now found common ground, love each other, and want to win these tag titles, going up against the most serious of wrestlers. Dax Harwood is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world because, like Eddie Kingston, no one told him that wrestling's fake. So it's just, it is real to him, damn it. And because it is real to him, damn it, MJF doing a dance in the middle of the match is well annoying. Yeah. And he was so angry at Little Max in this match, and it was awesome. This match was so great. This match was so much fun. This match was so entertaining because this Adam Cole and MJF thing has just worked. It is actual lightning in a bottle, and the crowd have gone banana for this team. The t-shirts are selling like hotcakes.
I want one.
Yeah, both of them. They are doing really great work here.
And it started with sorry, finish one.
And then they have this match with the super serious, super FTR. And you can tell how over this MJF Cole thing was. Because when FTR won, this crowd were gutted.
Yeah, I was.
Genuinely gutted. And they pitched this finish so perfectly for 2 reasons. Number one, it came out of nowhere. And reason number B, it was because it was MJF's fault. And so what happened is that Cole was being set up to be hit with a shadow machine, and MJF saves Adam Cole. He reverses out of the shadow machine to get a roll up on Cash, but in the process gets rolled up himself, and he gets pinned. The FTR just won. They won clean. They didn't hook the tights. There was nothing. They just won clean. So it's interesting there. Max has been pinned. MJF has been pinned. And I think that will, going by AEW's previous logic, that should set up Dax versus Max for the World Championship on HBO Max. And so that's interesting, point number one. Yeah. But point number two is after the match, when MJF kept saying, I lost the match, I lost the match. There's a wonderful double meaning in that, which is, I lost the match, that was my fault. And I lost the match because I'm unfocused. And I've taken my eye off being the world champion in search of being a friend instead. And that means I lost a match. And I kind of love that. I thought everything about this, and we'll get to the post-match in a second as well, which was equally as breathtaking. But I thought at least my interpretation of the finish, the two reasons for that finish was so great. I just loved this so much. What did you make of it?
I agree completely. I loved it from the opening, and by the opening I mean the opening of the show, like the opening promos, which I chose to just not reference anymore because I feel like people are like giving them props and it's like, well, it's just part of the show now as much as a commercial break is. So I feel like, or as an entrance to the ring, so I don't really comment on them. But these opening promos, MJF and Adam Cole were full of beans. They were full of fire, and then I actually was even more intrigued by FTRs where they were considerably more subdued, which made me think, oh, they kind of a little bit doubt themselves. Like they're like not $100p sure that they can take these because we've had two pretty intense matches with Bullet Club Gold the past 2 weeks in a row, last week, and then it's like here where you almost lost your belts, and here are these two that are on fire. These like strange bedfellows have made it work somehow and got everybody on their side. So even though you're telling me that you're going to come out on top, I don't know that you believe it, which I thought was really compelling. Then you get into the match and you have MJF playing full babyface, like, you know, looking to the crowd and being like, where shall I hit him? In the what? In the nuts? Like all of that stuff is really interesting. And FTR are being as brutal as possible. The actual match itself was, I would say, broadly fine until the final minutes. It wasn't like the athletic competition that we've seen from FTR over the past few weeks on Collision.
It wasn't quite the Bullet Club Gold match.
No, but it was what it was. Do you know what I mean? By which I mean they presented us what they wanted to present us, and I think it was really good. And then when you do get to the final moments and you do get to the save, the almost literal, I'm gonna take the bullet for you. I'm gonna dive and push you out of the way so that I take this. My only thing is I wish that it would have been Shatter Machine pin rather than a roll-up. I get why they did the roll-up, and I think it's still effective, but I would have booked it with a Shatter Machine. I think
you do the roll-up because no one expected that to be the finish. The whole idea behind that finish was to take the wind out of everyone's sail and suck the air out of the arena, and they succeeded in doing that because this crowd did not react to this finish.
Because it sounded like it just was like, oh, really?
And then when they realized that was the finish, it wasn't boos, it was
And then what sells this moment, by the way, earlier on in the match, it had kind of been played a little bit for lols, right? I think, and what I'm about to say is what then leads me into why this closing segment that we'll talk about was so impactful, was that it had kind of been a bit silly. There was a lot of, I'm going to kick your nuts in, like, I'm going to bash your nuts, and the crowd are chanting, get his nuts, or whatever, which, like, funny. In the picture-in-picture, Ian says... Max is about to pull Dax into the between the ring posts or whatever, and Ian just says, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the N-word on the air, by which he means nuts. But I was like, huh? And I think Nigel McGuinness was as well. But like the whole thing kind of felt a little bit, Ian. I know what it feels like when you say something. I have a story that it's not for the podcast. I'll tell you afterwards. But not about that word. Oh my God, I've just had it. Which is that moment of I've said something and it's accidentally gone wrong. So I so feel for Ian. But the point being, the whole match had kind of been a little bit silly, right? A little bit playing up to it, to the point where you wondered whether or not Max was taking it seriously. So then when he loses and does have that moment of, I lost this, and Adam is there giving him a pep talk and gets the championship and hands it to him and says, you're still the world champion. We messed this up. We lost this match. You didn't do anything. It's so emotional. It's kind of wrenching.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought Adam Cole was so good in this post-match. And you're right as well, like the silliness of this is all part of MJF's character development in this feud because he's being overtly silly in his matches. Double clothesline is a silly finisher. And he's doing lots of wacky stuff in matches. The whole body slam thing in the Big Bill and Brian Cage match. He's playing up being a babyface and is having fun with it. And through that has found the power of friendship, but also then lost a match. And what does that now mean for MJF as a person?
He's let his guard down.
He's let his guard down. He's let his guard down in two different states, in ring and in his personal life. And how's that affected him? He just lost a match. He got pinned for the first time in what feels like forever. And I mean, he obviously got pinned during the Iron Man match and stuff, but, like, to lose a match, it's so incredible. So you have this post-match. This post-match was awesome for a number of reasons, but Adam Cole, the last time, had the belt before handing it to Max, had that moment where he looked at it, and they played that up a little bit. This time it was no, boom, straight back to you. MJF's already given him the title match. He has no need to turn on MJF in order to get a title match. MJF's already giving it to him because they're friends. So he just hands the title to him and he's pleading with him. You're still the world champion. You didn't, like you were saying, you didn't lose this. We lost this. And then Adam Cole
said, I love you.
I love you.
He said, I love you.
Yeah. And he goes and he walks to the other corner because he knows exactly what Max is going to do next. It's not like Cole was standing there like a dumb baby face, like, oh, and then he got hit by the belt. He knew exactly what Max was going to do next. That's why he gave him the belt. He was giving him the choice. Do you still want to be my friend? And he stands in the ring and he lets Max make that decision for himself, which is he gets the belt. He gets it in the same way you would go if you were going to attack someone. And Adam Cole just puts his hands in the air and just shouting in front of looking him in the eyes, being like, just do what you got to do. And in the end, MJF drops the belt and he hugs Adam Cole. They're still friends.
Yeah.
And I love that. And the thing I love most about this storyline, I will let you talk in a second.
No.
The thing I love about this storyline is every single turn, it subverted the expectations. Because when this started, everyone was like, well, this is very clear. One of them is going to turn on the other one to lead to a title match. Yeah. That's been addressed in this of being like, oh, yeah, that was my plan, was to turn on you. And it was like, yeah, that was my plan as well. I only wanted to do this so I could get a title match. Well, you're going to have a title match. Every single turn, they are subverting the expectations of the audience. And I cannot wait to see where it goes next.
This is what I'm talking about. This company, when I do nitpick or I whinge, it's because I hold them to a high standard because they are capable of delivering intrigue on this level. This storyline is so intriguing because when MJF is on the ropes, lifting the belt up, I'm like, is Adam Cole going to turn on him right now? Like, is that going to be what happened? Like, oh, and it doesn't. It gets me nervous. Like, I get nervous. I'm going to compare it favorably to the Bloodline because there's no point in tribalism and because it's wonderful that we get all of these things. The thing about the Bloodline was that we always thought we had it planned out, but then it turns out we were wrong and like they go a different direction with it. Same thing's happening here where I think this plan was probably for it to be quite a short program and then they struck lightning in a bottle. Maybe. And it was like, you've got to make it work. Like, so, crack on with it and let it flow and see where we go. And I'm now so compelled with what comes next. Your idea for that main event of All In is so great. The trios match. It was such a really interesting and emotional climax where I'm like, I don't know where you're going to go now. And that, for me, as a fan of any type of storytelling, is the most exciting. So yeah, huge props to both of them.
Well,
they played it really well.
That was the episode of Collision. I suppose if we were giving it a rating or review, I'd probably give this a very solid 4. Maybe even, I think a very solid. I mean, it was 5 because it's hard.
It wasn't 5 for me because I had problems, but I think some of its parts was not greater than it. I think it wasn't greater than it. So it was a really good show. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because I said that I was like, well, 4, but then I was like, oh, hang on.
Yeah,
that opening ladder match was awesome. Minoru Suzuki showing up was awesome. Samoa Joe walked away from the gravity spot. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
It's a thumbs up show for me. I mean, that's the rating system we do in the live chat.
Let's be what's his face in the other one.
Cisco Lever.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. Let's get into the remainder of your no mega chats. We're kicking things off with Ponk. If you want to get yours in, it's WrestleTalk.com/support. Ding, ding, ding. This is your last call. Ponk here says, was at the show. Such an unnecessarily great show for a place like Hartford. Oh. No disrespect to the people that live there. But bell to bell, it was an amazing show. And the post-match segment of MJF and Dax sharing a drink and pizza was something I'd never expected.
Oh, they did a little post-show? That's fun.
They did, yeah, because MJF had this big rah-rah babyface speech. And it's so beautifully MJF, where he was like, look, the reason the 4 of us are standing here, the reason that every single person is in this building is because we believe in AEW. You know, at least until 2024 when I'm out of here. Right, but that's another story for another time. Funny. Bizarro Big L says, Luke, you may have forgotten. House of Black aren't babyface. Although Andrade may be playing more into his babyface side, he is always a heel at heart, waiting for this to turn into Roosh and all of LFI getting the trios match they deserve. Tranquilo. I don't know. Did I say that
I don't remember.
I don't. Maybe I didn't know if I did. Yeah, because I guess he is the babyface in this.
Andrade.
Yeah. He certainly felt like one.
Me too. Yeah, but they robbed him, and that's not nice.
Jared Hazelwood said, I was at a convention this weekend and asked Wardlow about any bad road trip habits MJF has. He says that he publicly urinates all the time and yells he does it because he's an alpha. Just something funny I thought you'd like to know.
I can really see it.
Oh, that's so adorable.
Yeah.
Oh,
I bet he finds farts funny as well.
Well, they are.
No.
Zoob 2, not an opera, though. I'm glad that didn't make it into the final cut.
Yeah, I agree.
But, I think in general, a well-timed fart joke is very, very funny.
Anyway, what was the next one?
Zoobed. See, you laughed.
I'm not.
I'm going to All In, and I'm so excited I could wee. But come on, TK, announce some matches, please. What do you guys think the main event will be?
A lot of piss chats today. A lot of piss chats on the stream. I'm into yours. You've given it to me. I'm sorry. I want it. I don't know. I just want something. I actually, in their defense, the shows are usually booked like a month out, and we are a month out now. So now's the time.
I would say this is not uncommon for AEW to not have announced a match for a pay-per-view with
main
4
event,
weeks
though,
before.
They did give us the Iron Man match a long time before Revolution, for instance.
And then people criticize the fact that it took them too long to actually tell the story.
I didn't, but okay.
I'm unsurprised.
Yeah.
Like
I want selfishly as I'm someone who's going, I want to know what I'm going to be seeing, but I already bought a ticket.
Yeah,
I mean that's the other point of this is they have sold close to, if not they've hit at this point 80,000 tickets, right?
Yeah.
So like with sight unseen, that is an achievement during a period of time, by the way, where this product is not as hot as it used to be.
Yeah.
Kind of but I would like you to start announcing matches now because I want to know what I'm seeing. Also, you've now got to think about your pay-per-view guys. Yeah. So you want to do the heat to make them want to buy it.
Exactly. I mean, if I may name drop for just a second, I ran into Tom Campbell earlier and just chatting with him. We're friends. It's no big deal. And we were just chatting away, and he was making the point then that they haven't announced a match for All In. And a lot of people on Twitter last week were like, there's been no match announced. I wasn't expecting a match to have been announced on last week's Dynamite.
I was, because Big Apple had the guts out of the way. I thought we'd have at least a 0.2.
And I think in some cases, Tony Storm versus Britt Baker is a 0.2. That's probably one of the matches All In. But yeah, I don't think I was expecting any matches to be announced because this company never has a habit, which I actually think is a negative on the company. I think you should announce matches a bit more ahead of time, but they don't tend to. I think if they don't announce any matches this Wednesday, that's weird.
Yes, then I'm going to.
I would say, but like, I think we probably need to step this up a little bit, TK, or at the very least, give us some very clear markers of what some matches we can expect All In to be.
Yeah,
because you're right. Like, you need to shift those last 5,000 or so tickets if you want to hit the all-time attendance record, or 8,000, whatever it is. You want to probably announce some big matches. Lol, that one of them might be Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho.
This is what I'm talking about with the interaction. Like, on what planet? On what planet?
I can tell you exactly what planet on. The planet where Chris Jericho is the smartest man in the room. Only Chris Jericho could have got himself this match. No one other than Chris Jericho wants that match.
Yeah.
But he is such an excellent politicker that on the biggest UK show, probably the biggest stage that Will Ospreay will ever be on, will it be against completing the trilogy with Kenny Omega? Will it be against the dream match of CM Punk? Will it be him versus Vikingo for the AAA Mega Championship? Just think of the incredible action those two might have. No, it might be Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
What did you bring out the Painmaker next? What a fart of a match.
No.
What a complete waste of a Will Ospreay. But I really, really commend Chris Jericho for getting himself into that position. I've turned a corner on politickers in my later years. There was a time when I really demonized Triple H for his rewriting of
that time was last week.
For his rewriting of WWE history. But really, his rewriting of WWE history would make British historians proud to make him look like the winner and the best. And really, you just got to commend him. Just be like, fair play to you, because you got the book.
Yeah, there you go.
Every bit of rewriting of history you did got you the keys to the kingdom. So you played the game, pun intended, pretty darn well.
Yeah. I don't want to watch it. Jericho Ospreay. Like, I will.
No one does, Dan! No one does! 80,000 people don't want to see it!
I want to see Ospreay and I want to see Jericho, just not together.
No! Oh, no, no, separate matches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not together.
Not together.
That'd be a very silly match. And you know what? It'd probably be a great match. Because Chris Jericho's great. Will Ospreay's the best wrestler on the planet. They'd probably have an amazing match. But literally, not a single person, not a scintilla of humanity is interested in seeing that match. apart from Chris Jericho. The man's a genius. Eddie Pat says, so for a minute, I was confused on why Max wouldn't address anything that Punk had been saying for the last couple of weeks. Then I realized it's completely in character for him not to know because he's not watching wrestling, especially on a Saturday night. Problem there, Eddie, is that he was in the building. Don't Mind Me at work says, I think the difference between Punk and Cody is that Punk is comfortable going heel while Cody desperately wants to stay babyface. Had he turned to become Cody Rhodes' corporate nightmare, he could have been the number one heel in the company, using his WWE-ness to get heat. It's very true.
That's very perceptive. Or my only disagreement is that I think I think Punk wants to be loved so bad. I think he wants to be loved so bad.
And Brett J. Rasmussen, to round things up here, says, number one, Dan being Ken in Cineworld's VIP ad on YouTube is just perfect casting because Dan is Ken in real life.
My job is speech.
What? You didn't told me this.
You know about this?
No.
Yeah. Well, it's also, they're showing it in cinemas as well.
No way.
Yeah, we did an ad to essentially promote the going to see of Barbie in VIP, which is a format at Cineworld, very comfy chairs, and you get food and all that nonsense. Get pizza, and we did an ad where I was Ken, and it was on. I took a picture of it. I'll try and find it.
No way!
Yeah.
You handsome little devil, you.
Thanks.
Why wasn't I contacted?
It's been known.
Why wasn't I contacted about this one?
It's the hair.
Is that what it was?
Basically,
you can give me a wig.
You know when we shot What's On the other day, I then went to see a movie afterwards.
Yeah.
And I was on my phone, not really paying attention during the trailers because
I'm during the movie for a second.
No,
you're an animal.
I'm a bad human being. And then I was like, oh, that's my voice. And I was on the big screen.
Oh, look at you.
Look, that's me.
Oh.
On the big screen. So, yeah, there you go. Exciting.
2, Luke, have you forgiven Dan for not inviting you to that TMNT event? What TMNT event?
They've misremembered. I wasn't at the TMNT event. We did this when we talked about What's On. You were very upset.
Oh, yes, of course.
My girlfriend went to an event. We got some toys. They are now with the child.
And you didn't give them
not my
to
child.
Me.
No, I didn't. I gave them to an actual child.
Yeah, I've got an actual child.
Yeah, and your wife has too. I didn't go to the event, so you can't be angry at me.
I was a little bit though. Lastly, love the main event. Joe Walker Way is the greatest spot in professional wrestling.
Can't disagree.
Can't disagree with that. And that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the WrestleTalk Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do press the thumbs up button while you're here before you leave, and the subscribe button as well. Help us get to 85,000 subs so we can do our 10-hour watch party stream. Where we'll do a little randomizer of various different wrestling matches that you can watch along with at home. And this week, it's a busy old week here.
Oh, it really is. We're in SummerSlam week.
It's a very busy week here on the WrestleTalk Podcast channel. So now is the time to subscribe and enable notifications to always on to know when the videos go live, because tomorrow it is Raw, Wednesday it is SummerSlam predictions, Thursday it is Dynamite 200, Friday is my interview with JEFF JARRETT great Jeff Jarrett. I spoke with Jeff Jarrett for 32 minutes. And that's going to be going live this coming Friday. We talk about All In. We talk about TNA. We talk about Team TNA. I got to pitch him my Team TNA match for All In, which he was very excited about. We spoke about filming on the Briscoes farm and his funny stories, or his funny memories from doing then. We talked about Bash at the Beach 2000. We talked about a whole host of different topics, and that'll be going live this Friday. And then on Saturday, it will be myself and Dan the Truth Layton watching and reacting to SummerSlam here in the podcast studio. And then on Sunday, it will be a SummerSlam review with Oliver Davis and Chopper P. Cornell. And then, would you Adam and Eva, on Monday, we'll be back once again like Renegade Masters to review Collision.
It's just all go.
It's all go.
Traveling circus.
So please do press the subscribe button. It's a great time to do so. Till then, I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been The Truth, the Professor Dan Layton. Jam that jam.